Wagner. Here. Costa Vito, absent. Eager. Here. Flores. Here. Hamilton. Here. Kotsinis.
Here.
And Sutton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So let's start with the strategic planning and space audit implementation process. Ryan.
Yeah, so the copy of the contract is on page 3. I asked the board to formally do this to a vote. I mean, this is in the budget for the facilities improvement plan. We worked with them before, but I wanted to get a board vote on record and give you a chance to look at it, see if they had any issues. So I think we're getting a really good deal. The board asked me to negotiate, and I did try to negotiate with the strategic plan, but we are getting a good deal on the strategic plan. I think we're getting a good deal on David's services as well. I mean, his fees are expensive,
Yeah.
but he's a very talented individual, and already, just with initial conversations with him on the project, I think he'll prove his value. So any concerns about anything with the contracts? And it's one of those instances where if we look like a month where he kind of outlies the expectation, but if there is a month where we're out to bid and there are no meetings and we did a lot of work, then he won't charge us that time if he's not allocating it to us. So.
And the additional cost for travel, that's kind of going to be an arbitrary thing, correct? We won't know.
Well, when he comes here for on-site meetings, that's part of we're on the hook for those fees.
Renovated hotel.
What's that?
We have the new renovated hotel.
We do. Maybe
All the
they can.
advertisements.
Maybe they can give us a deal. I don't know. We negotiated pretty hard that developer donation, so I don't know if they want to do us any favors.
Any other questions, any concerns?
Just one question, and maybe we've answered or talked about this. When would we start the strategic plan? I mean, would we start paying that right now as well?
So we had a meeting a week ago, and I reached out to Third Way and Enberg, and I said, well, they wanted to have a kickoff meeting so we could get started and stick to our timeline. So they said, well, we'll just bill you those hours. So since we didn't have an official contract, so we have met with them, mainly on the space plan, but we had an initial meeting about the strategic plan, which we'll talk about later in the regular board meeting.
Okay.
But I don't think that's really formally kicked off. We just had a kind of initial meeting.
That's what I was wondering. When would we excuse me.
Any other questions? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please? Or do we have a motion before we have a roll call?
Motion to approve their rate space contract as presented.
I'll second it.
All right, now we'll have a roll call vote.
Hamilton.
Aye.
Sutton.
Aye.
Eager.
Aye.
Wagner. Aye. Costa Vito, absent. Flores.
Aye.
Kotsinis.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, let's move on to the next item on our agenda. Facilities improvement plan, retaining Enberg Anderson.
Yeah, so I didn't put this in your packet. I have a copy that we printed one copy. We're trying to save some trees, so so I sent those out individually. So if you'd like to look at this, this has been looked over by our attorney Mark Ritzman, and Mark informed me the other day he was comfortable with the board approving this, and so he had some things he wanted to see in it. So they've gone back and forth, and as always, Mark and Roger look out in our best interest. So we've come to a satisfactory agreement at this point.
Any questions about the contract? Anyone?
Yeah, the one thing I noticed, and
I don't have much experience with this kind of contract. There's no force majeure clause in it. Is that normal?
I don't know. I can ask.
I don't want to hold things up because
Well,
of
we
that.
can-
I'm
we can-
assuming the attorney would have
Well,
said something.
before I sign it, I will ask Mark about it, and then if he says, "Oh, that's a good catch," then we should slow down. We can slow down. Does that sound satisfactory?
Yeah,
or-
that's fine.
That's what it's called.
Force majeure, yeah.
Force majeure.
Basically, if the end of the world happens, or COVID, or hurricanes, or
Yeah,
whatever.
and who knows? Maybe that's with these contracts. Maybe that's covered someplace else, and it's.
And
it's
like I said, I don't have any experience really with this type
Right.
of contract, so.
And this is the type of contract where we really rely on our attorneys because you can read through this,
Right.
but it's so
Too much.
it's so
Yeah.
detailed that it's why we have attorneys.
Do we have anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll motion. I motion to approve Enberg Anderson contract as presented.
I'll second. Can we get a roll call vote for those two, please?
Sutton,
Aye.
Eager,
Aye.
Hamilton,
I,
Wagner,
Aye.
Costa Viro absent, Flores.
Aye.
Cotsinis.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, and then our third item, construction management services contract.
Yeah, so we're not going to award a contract this evening. At least that's my recommendation, unless the board feels strongly otherwise. So we received 4 statement of qualifications, and I'm going to go through them in kind of the order. So what I'm going to do is recommend to the board 2 finalists, and the idea would be for myself and Katie Troyer to interview these finalists and answer some questions. We'll talk about that in a second, but let me just kind of walk you through the ones that we don't want to move forward. So the first is Premier, and while Premier looks like they've done some great work, they in essence have they don't have any public library experience. So they've never worked with Enberg Anderson. So it's a bit of a leap of faith to work with them on a project like this. So due to that reason, we don't think it makes sense moving forward. If we didn't have other really strong construction management services to work with, maybe we'd consider them. So that's my recommendation, first of all, to throw them out. So then you have Featherstone. Featherstone, they do check the boxes in terms of experience working with public libraries, a phased approach to a project, working in an occupied facility, which we're asking for. There are some red flags with the staff, although they've done Cook Memorials projects. The staff that they wanted to assign to this one are not staff that Enberg was familiar with, and they didn't work on the Cook project, so that's a bit of an unknown. Also, some of the references that we've given, they gave 2 for Crystal Lake, and the Crystal Lake project, Enberg worked with them and didn't go very well, so they had a bad experience. And they also indicated Enberg as a reference in this, and so they were a little disingenuous with their relationship. So those are red flags. So although Featherstone does have somewhat of a track record, we don't want to move forward with them. And once again, if the other 2 weren't far and away the top 2, we might want to talk to them. So my recommendation would be to interview FQC and SMC. These are 2 construction management services that have done a number of library projects. They have good track records. The teams that they would assign to our project have great track records. So, talking with Joe, it does seem like SMC would be preferred, but as he said, really, these are 2 caliber construction management services to work with. It's best to interview them and see how they answer some of your questions. I'm going to look at my notes because he said to us, and I want to get your feedback on this too. When you interview them, because I said, Katie and asked Joe, what do we ask them? And he said, things that give you anxiety about this project. What are the things that you're worried about?
Yeah.
So things like, how do we avoid budgetary surprises? Provide examples. How do we avoid timeline delays? What's your communication style? How do we avoid unnecessary mistakes? What happens when someone doesn't show up to do their job this week, like a subcontractor? You gave us a bunch of names in your statement of qualifications for your project team. Are those the people that are really going to be involved in the project, and how much? how much time will this team be on site, and what's the thought process behind that? Because you don't necessarily want them on site all the time because you'll pay more. So it has to be a balance of them being on site enough to make sure the job's getting done, but them not here all the time where you're paying them, basically the whole time. How much involvement will you want from myself or Katie or Rebecca with the project? Do you want us to check in every day and look over you? Do you want us to? So what flow of communication you prefer? At the end of the day, it comes down to the team you're working on for a project. You might select a vendor that has a great track record, but if the team that they assign you is not great, then even if their reputation is stellar, you might not be satisfied. So that's my recommendation to the board, for us to interview these two services and get our questions answered, your questions answered, and then make a recommendation after we see what they think. And in terms of fees, it's essentially based on the job, and we'll ask them more about that. But this isn't like a situation where, like, okay, this is going to be X number of dollars, this is going to be Y number of dollars. So it's a little bit different than like you're bidding like a plumbing project and one guy comes lower, like 50K or something. So any questions about the process? Do you approve this approach with these two finalists? And if you do, what questions do you have? What things give you anxiety about this project that you want us to ask? You can always email me later if you don't have anything that comes to mind.
When do you think you'll be interviewing them, or has that been
Between now and the regular board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we don't have the time scheduled yet. I wanted to make sure the board felt comfortable with this approach before we scheduled anything.
I like the basic rundown of having, like, that you've had a larger number of options and scaled it down a little bit, and that you have a list. I think the idea about the things that you're most concerned about, staff-wise, asking them, I think that's a really good angle to take. And I think it's an important one too, that, like, what is going to be required of you guys and your day-to-day time, and that's could be a very big factor,
Sure.
Budget.
Yeah.
Right,
Too.
right,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and their approach matters too, because depending on how they approach it, they ideally they save you money during the process, right? One of the things that Joe talked about with us is the estimating, and that's a big part of this project too. I think one of the reasons that he likes SMC so much is John Shales, who's the owner of the company, does the estimating, and he's got a fantastic track record of estimating what project costs will be, for example. So, and their approach to change orders also plays into saving costs. Depending on who you're working with, they'll approach it differently. Are they going to double click on that request and make sure you really need to pay for the change order or not? So all these things are important. So yes, it is important to get high caliber construction management services, because that in the end will save us money if we do it right.
All right. Well, we don't need an action right now because we're waiting to see the final contract. I assume that'll be on the agenda for
August 19th. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Any other questions? If not, can we have a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We're adjourned at 7:15.